He's just a regular guy with a cool job that God loves for some reason. Welcome to the Steve Marston Show, a daily journey in learning how to live more like Jesus, conversations with those that God is working through, and dad jokes. It's the most unique show you'll hear today. Now, here's Steve.
All right, welcome in. It is Friday. That always means a fun Friday around here on the Steve Marston Show, and I am glad that you are joining me. A fun Friday means we crank up the fun to 11, and we are excited that you are with us on one of two great radio stations, Faith Talk 99.5 in Little Rock, Arkansas, or AM 630, The Word in San Antonio, Texas. You may be watching us either city or all points in between and around the country, and maybe even around the world. Who knows? I mean, because we're just everywhere with the video stream on Rumble, on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I don't think I left any of them out. We are just everywhere. So thank you for being a part. And we're going to have some fun today. We're going to be joined by Adam Holtz from pluggedin.com coming up in a little bit. He is our weekly Friday guest to talk about all things movies and streaming shows and entertainment. And Plugged In does such a fantastic job of just breaking down everything. And we'll get to him. Plus, we'll review our Babylon Bee for the week and so much more. Plus, phone calls. If you are listening and watching live, you can call in. We'll answer the phone. And I know if you're in San Antonio especially, you're going to go, this is not the number we normally call. I know. But here's the number to reach us, 501-404-6555. 501-404-6555. All right, let's get started today with a friend of mine's Facebook post from yesterday. I was just blown away by it. And I thought, if I'm blown away by it, it's going to probably inspire and move you as well. You know, we talk about a lot of times how it's so much different having a relationship with Christ than just kind of being religious. It is so different. And I know there are people who are fashionable for deconstructing their faith because they talk about how, you know, they were quote unquote saved, and you turn around and now they're questioning everything, and they don't believe in a God. They certainly don't believe in Jesus anymore. And I've always had an issue with that, because my feeling is that once you experience Christ the way I have, and I pray that most of you have, there's no way you could turn back. There's no way you could say, oh, that was just kind of a fever dream. That was a bad burrito late night from a convenience store. No. It is something that you just can't walk away from. And that kind of ties into what my friend Marie posted. Now, she is someone, I'll just be honest with you. I don't know that I've had more than like one conversation with her. Her husband is somebody that I have had very little interaction with. They are new members to our church, and I became Facebook friends with them just because I knew they were, you know, newbies at our church. So when I saw this post, I was just like, this is so good. I want to share it with you. And she told me it was cool for me to do this. So this is what she said. After my mom died, I decided not just to follow the Christian culture, but to be an actual disciple. See, that's what I'm talking about. That is the difference that so many people, I think, miss. She said, I walked away from the following culture scene and all of the things that entail it with the best I can do. And at times, I know my friends don't understand, but those that are truly my friends and family love me anyway and understand the why behind it. She said, God said it's time to go from milk to meat. Now, let's just stop right there. That's an analogy that the Apostle Paul used. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even Peter in their writings in the New Testament, basically saying, look, spiritual maturity is a thing. We are to be growing constantly in our relationship with Christ, looking more like him each day, allowing him to point out the areas in our life that need changing and then make those changes. And again, just to live and act and sound and talk and be more like Jesus. And that's what Paul and Peter talked about, being off the just baby formula and really growing to the point where you can handle some solid food. So this is what she said. In order to do that, I had to walk away from things of the world as much as possible because the things of the world drowned out his voice. So my social circles are extremely limited. The things I do socially now, I'm extremely cautious of when, where, and who. I find myself watering plants in my robe, barefoot in the sunshine, with Jesus music blaring through the windows while I'm down there. I put birdseed out in my feeders and watch the bluebird nests be active. I talk to the chickens as they check in on me, which I love that sentence. She's not checking in on the chickens are checking in on her. She said, I have this love-hate relationship before in Arkansas because where I wanted to be something different than where God had planted us. She said, I didn't understand it for a while, but now I love this little small town life that's become my family and my friends, and my church is irreplaceable, a rare thing in today's world. She said, I've become a meemaw, I guess, and that's okay. She said, if you know your Bible and you know what it talks about, he's preparing our society for the next earth. You know he's coming back soon, and I don't want to be found doing some things that I'm not supposed to be doing. Said Friday is good, but Sunday is coming. That's from my friend Marie that she posted on Facebook. And like I say, there's so much truth in that. And we, on the surface, listen to that post and say, giving up things and turning and away from things that I've always found as fun or entertaining or whatever, those are hard sacrifices to make. They're not something for the faint of heart. And it's not because of you thinking that it's going to be some kind of spiritual, like, money deposited into your account and, oh, she or he has got so much good stuff here versus the bad stuff in their life that it's going to make you somehow better with God. No, we lay down the stuff that we feel like hinders him. Because again, like she said, I just love this sentence because she's walked away from some of the stuff in the world because it drowns out his voice. That's the reason, because it's so hard to hear sometimes when you have so much going on and so many different things that maybe pull your attention. And we've talked about this a dozen times on this show or more. Some of the things aren't bad. The things that pull us away are more than likely okay things. Some of them are even good things. They could be church activity. They could be, your hobbies or spending time with your family even. Well, how is that negative? How does that keep you from Jesus? Because those priorities take priority over your relationship with him. So it's a delicate balance. It's a high wire act, and sometimes we don't get it all right. And you know what? That's okay too. But as long as we understand that we're facing one way toward Jesus and we're always making progress and taking that next step, that's all he asks of us. That's it. So good stuff. Thank you, Marie. I really appreciate this. And it encouraged me. I hope it did you as well. Stay with us. More of the Steve Marston Show coming up back after this. All right, it is a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for letting us spend part of the afternoon together. I am Steve, your host, and we are doing Ministry of the Month on both of our radio stations with Alistair Begg and Truth for Life. Alistair's just about my favorite Bible teacher that we have on the air. He just has an incredible way of taking what is sometimes complex scripture and communicating it into a point that you're just like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's why I love Alistair. And he has written a couple of children's books. We're going to see if we can get this back on the screen here. Let's see. That look good. That's in front of my face now. How about like that? There we go. One is C is for Christian, and the other is J is for Jesus. These are children's books that are available for you. If, in fact, look, I'm not really supposed to do this, so like don't tell anybody. But if you want a copy of each one of these, no matter where you're listening from, you can call right now, 501-404-6555. Tommy, our producer, is standing by. He'll take all of your information. We'll get it to you in the mail. So check it out, because these, I'm telling you, these are amazing books. And if you've got a grandchild, especially, but even maybe younger children in your house, these are perfect. These are really, really good. Again, J is for Jesus, C is for Christian, the name of the books from Alistair Begg. We thank them for providing these books for Ministry of the Month. Okay, on Fridays, we decide to review headlines. Not headlines like everybody else does, because you can tune up and down the dial throughout all of the radio and find Christian talk shows. You can fire up your internet and type in your podcast deal saying, hey, I want Christian talk shows. And they'll all talk about things in the Politico, or they'll talk about things in the Los Angeles Times, or in the Washington Post, or in the New York Times. But not here, not ever, not on my watch. We, on the other hand, review the contents of the Babylon Bee every week. Now, if you're not familiar with the Bee, it is the nation's leading satire website for my money. And it really kind of pokes fun at the Christian bubble as well, which, again, right up my alley. So on Fridays, we like to take the time to see what they have of entertainment value that you may be interested in. So this one I found very, very enlightening, and I think you will as well. So, producer Tommy, a little appropriate music here. Here from the pages and the website of the Babylon Bee is 7 ways to toughen up your wimpy kid. B says kids these days are just pushovers. Because back in the old days, every kid knew how to work, how to fight, and how to smoke tobacco. You're doggone right we did. And how parents can recapture the toughness for their kids today, well, never fear. The Babylon Bee is here to help you with several ways to toughen up your wimpy kid. Let's start at number 1. Throw him in a cage with the gorillas at the zoo. And don't let them shoot hombre this time. Hey, just telling you, that'll do it. Number 2 on the list, send him to VBS. Nothing tests a child like a week of hard time served at a vacation Bible school. Hey, it is going to be VBS season pretty soon. Number three, have him play Battletoads on the NES. Now, that's old school. You got to be as old as me and producer Tommy to know what that game is. But it will either toughen him up or completely crush his spirits for the rest of his life. It's true on both. Number 4 on the Babylon Bee's list of 7 things to toughen up your wimpy kid is drop him off in the middle of Chicago with only a compass to find his way home. If he makes it home, he'll be a new person. Well, not a can't find any error in that. I mean, it's like that old Indian thing, just drop them off in the top of the mountain and leave them alone for the whole night. Let's see, number 5 on the list is give him a coat of many colors so that his resentful brothers will sell him into slavery. Well, that works every time. You got to know your Bible to know that reference there. We've made it to number 6. This is number 6 on the Babylon Bee's top 7 ways to make your wimpy kid more tough. Tell him to go ask Chappelle Rowan for her autograph. But you might want to give him a helmet first. Okay, now I'll confess ignorance. Producer Tommy, do you know who Chappelle Rowan is? See, I don't either. But I'm sure if we put it in the Google machine, we would find out, and we would know how difficult a task this would be, asking a child to go up for this autograph. And wrapping things up here, number 7 on the Babylon Bee's list of ways to toughen up your wimpy kid, the bee suggests make sure his entire wardrobe consists of Christian t-shirts with Bible verse puns on them. After a few beatings from the other kids, he'll learn what it means to be a man. So there you go. I know. Look, I used to have a ton of those Bible t-shirts when I was, I don't know, a kid, 17, 18, 19 years old. And they had the puns. It was the one that looked like, a Coca-Cola logo, and it said the real thing is Jesus, and all that. And that's fine, I guess. But in this day and age, I think they would get beat up for it. And so the Babylon Bee's not far off on that. So there you go. That is the Bee in review here on the Steve Marston Show. Real quick, before we run out of time in this segment, I have a PDF that I would love to share with you. And it's 5 steps to Bible study, or 5 tips, I should say. Just go to stevemarstonShow.com/store, and you can download this PDF for free. It's just strategies to help you when you open your Bible to have a game plan, because I think so many times we get frustrated when we open our Bible and we don't feel like we're making any progress or understanding anything. Well, I think this will help you. Again, stevemarstonShow.com/store for that free PDF. Stay with us. Coming back in a minute. Welcome back. It's the Steve Marston Show. Glad to have you here. Now, just to kind of close the loop, because I know some of you are still going, well, wait a minute. Steve, you're not going to tell us who this Chappelle Rowan person is? Okay, apparently is a pop singer and is openly gay or something, trans or something along those lines. And apparently just flipped out the other day on paparazzi and fans wanting an autograph. That's why the B suggested that. Look, it's tough being a celebrity. You just can't. You can't imagine all the pressure that person is under. Chappelle Rowan, who, again, I don't know. I don't know who I'm sure they have fans. Again, I'm sure it's legit and whatever. But yeah, that's closing the loop on that. So you don't have to worry anymore who that was. We're not going to leave you in limbo there. All right. Well, this is such a weird transition. Let's bring in Adam Holtz. He is our buddy from pluggedin.com. He joins us on Fridays to talk about all things entertainment. Adam is the director of that website, which is a ministry of focus on the family. Hey, welcome back, bud. It's good to see you again.
Good to be here. And I was going to read you in on another layer on the Chapel Roan thing.
Okay. Chapel. See, I even mispronounced the name.
Yeah, it's Chapel Roan. She's from Missouri. She's from just north of you a little ways. She grew up in a very conservative Christian environment, going to church 3 times a week, and then moved to Hollywood and came out and rejected everything. And she's now like the 3rd biggest singer in the world.
Okay, that now it's starting to come clear a little bit. I do remember hearing bits and pieces of that story. Did not connect the dots.
So she was in Brazil this week, and a little girl walked past her table at her hotel and smiled at her, and a security guard went like full Chuck Norris on her, and she's trying to like reel it back in and say, no, it didn't happen like that, but it did.
But it did because it's on video.
Said, so, like in the spirit of not just throwing her under the bus, she went from a nobody to global supernova. It actually took about 5 years, but as far as like normal people paying attention, it was like 5 seconds, right?
Sure.
She blew up huge last year, and she's got serious like social anxiety, and she has really struggled with fan attention, which is interesting, right? You think you want to be famous, and then you end up famous, and turns out it's not very much fun for you or anybody else. So it feels like a little bit of a cautionary tale without like trying to just go hard against her. But she has had some altercations with people and definitely developed a reputation.
Which is why the Babylon Beast said, in order to toughen up, ask for an autograph. Yeah, so that was the whole genesis behind getting to talk about her. Okay, so let's talk about some other things in entertainment. And this is a movie that you and I both are looking real forward to. It releases a week from today. It's called A Great Awakening. Yeah. It's about the relationship of Ben Franklin and George Whitefield, who, I knew they were contemporaries, but I had no idea. Not only were they, like friendly, I mean, Benjamin Franklin was basically his hype man.
Yeah, no, they were good friends, and this is an interesting film in that it explores that relationship and their friendship and their connection with each other, despite the fact that Benjamin Franklin was totally a deist. I mean, he was not a Christian, and so we have to make this weird distinction when we talk about the founding fathers, because a bunch of them, Thomas Jefferson wasn't okay. I don't know if it was a bunch of them. I know at least him and Jefferson, sort of subscribed to a moral religion and the idea that there's a God out there, but they were less interested in a personal relationship with Christ, right? And yet we see that Benjamin Franklin was kind of fascinated with the guy, and that his interactions with him informed some of the ways that he connected with people in the founding of the United States, and our founding fathers and the documents and Constitution and all of that. So I mean, I'm being really, really summarizing here, but that's what this is about. And it's fascinating to me, Steve, how there are so many things that until somebody like makes a movie about it, unless you're a deep, deep, deep historian, you would never know this stuff, right?
I found myself saying the exact same thing. I had no idea about
No
any of this
idea.
because this precedes the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, by
This
like
is
40 years. I mean, it's a
right.
generation before the Declaration of Independence.
And a lot of people credit this awakening that really, when you boil it down, it's God who provided the awakening. But it's what really kind of helped keep these 13 colonies kind of still together before the revolution would happen, before all the taxation without representation. It's just a fascinating period of time.
It is a fascinating period of time, and it begs all sorts of questions that you could look at from different perspectives about when we say that when some people say that America is a Christian nation, what does that mean, right? Because you certainly have people like Ben Franklin who were, I would say today they were sort of faith adjacent, but they weren't necessarily Christians in the way that we would define that term. And yet that influence is woven so deeply into the foundation and the foundational documents of our country. And so it's sort of both and, in some ways, I think we're absolutely a Christian nation. In other ways, I think you can look at it and say, well, it was one of the strong influences in play in a pretty unique way. But a lot of these guys certainly weren't Christians. So I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth and say it's kind of both and, but it's important for us to know that history.
Yeah, and I think a lot of them were, like you say, faith adjacent. They recognized that there is a higher power and a higher being that is involved in mankind, and some of them were Christians, and some of them wrote specifically about it. But I think it was a lot like what we have today. You have people that are of kind of all kind of within that kind of prism of spirituality. So I can't wait for the movie.
And you watch Hamilton, for example, that's absolutely a document of history, right? But certainly some of those guys are depicted as being ladies' men, and again, we can sort of feel like we didn't discover sin until the 1960s, but you have all of it represented across that spectrum. And yet it really does play into the shaping of our country, Yeah.
And it's done by the Sight and Sound folks, which is in Pennsylvania, but most of our folks in Arkansas, and probably some of them that are listening in San Antonio, probably have made the trek to Branson to see the Sight and Sounds productions. So this is their second full-length movie, so it's going to open again next weekend. So it's going to be really, really good. Let's talk about the Christ podcast. Now, I'm not familiar with this. What is this all about?
And I wasn't familiar with it either. We don't have an actual review on our website, but I do a number of interviews around the country, just like this one each week. One of them is with Faith Radio in Minneapolis, and they have worked to create essentially an audio drama of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. It really zooms in on that part of things. And I confess, when they told me about it, I had flashbacks to every really bad Christian movie I had ever seen. And I'm like,
because there was a lot of bad ones.
I hope this isn't a bless your heart experience, right? Okay. Oh, me of little faith. I was blown away. And it's the christpodcast.com. I got to pull it up here. But it's remarkable. John Rhys Davies, who of course voiced Gimli or was Gimli in Lord of the Rings, he's one of the hosts. And Patricia Heaton is the other one. And they've got an all-star vocal cast. I found it absolutely gripping, Steve.
Really?
I'm cynical enough and sarcastic enough and critical enough that I don't get just straight up surprised very often, which I would say is a feature, not a bug. Not everybody would agree with me. And this just caught me out. I couldn't believe how much I was just engaged with it. And I thought what was interesting was unlike watching a movie with just the audio. It was theater of the mind, right? I
Yeah.
was listening to it, and it's the way, when things used to be on the radio, they'd have those old radio shows. It kind of felt like that. So I, I was totally surprised, and I was
Yeah.
completely engaged until I fell asleep in my chair. But that's a different story and a different problem. That's an old man problem. Uh, but I loved it. I thought it was great. TheChristPodcast.com.
That's fantastic because I'm an audio nerd. I'm one of these guys that still loves radio and still
Yeah.
loves to listen to stuff. In fact, I do audio books like crazy on my commutes. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing or hearing that because you're right. Just the theater of the mind is such a great description of it. It's
Well,
it makes it come to life, and you're kind of almost
you're
in
right
control
there.
of it. So, yeah,
Yeah, and in fact, I will go so far as to say that when Jesus is being scourged, he's whipped 39 times
right.
and they count out a bunch of them. And then when they nail him to the cross, I was wincing. Like it was weirdly graphic for me, just the sounds and what it evoked in my mind. I found myself really deeply moved emotionally by it. So, and again, I don't feel like I get surprised like that very often. As a general rule, I have a pretty good idea of what I'm getting into, what to expect. It's kind of been my job for 3 decades.
Right.
And this one just sort of knocked me on my, backside in a good way.
Yeah. Well, and that's the beauty of doing jobs like what you and I have.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it keeps us from being 100% cynical. We can still stay at
Right.
around 90, 95%, but it just all of a sudden those things out of the blue sky kind of just hit us in a certain way, in the right way. So that's good stuff.
And
Again, it's
can
the
I call
Chris.
an audio an audible on you too?
Of course.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to get this in too because it's actually a good segue. And you and I always communicate ahead of time. This has popped up since I sent you that information earlier today. Uh, in the same vein, we have Adventures in Odyssey at
Mhm.
Focus on the Family.
Of
Did
course.
you know we're working on a movie at Focus?
I have heard some little rumors and
Okay.
scuttlebutt about that.
So if you go to pluggedin.com, you will see the first trailer and you'll have a chance to sort of comment on the trailer. This just popped up like in the last hour. I didn't know it was coming, or I
Nice.
would have given you advance notice. So if you are an Odyssey super fan, this is like the origin story of Wit. And I think
Cool.
if you're a big time Odyssey fan, it's going to give you the chills from start to finish. So there you go.
I can't wait for that. That'll be great. We got just a couple of minutes left.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a video game. We don't do
Yeah.
that as much,
No,
but
we don't.
you guys are on top of all things media
Yes.
that are out on pluggedin.com. And this is a new game called Resident Evil Requiem.
Yep.
What's up with it?
So zombies. That's the
Mhm.
one word summary. Zombies. They're bad. We have to
Right.
shoot them. So
Right.
the deeper
Always.
story is that this is a franchise that's been around since 1996. This is the 30th Resident Evil game. There are 11 core games that tell the story of the Umbrella Corp, and it's always an evil corporation that has a something that goes off and turns everybody into zombies. And once again, we have lots of shooting of zombies, right? That's the reason you play Resident Evil. But they're definitely horror kind of games. There's creepy music.
Mhm.
It's dark. There are jump scares. And, if you're a 16-year-old boy, that sounds like a good time. If you're a 55-year-old who hasn't been 16 for a hot second, it doesn't sound like a good time. Um, but it's a very no pun intended, well executed game. Like as these things go, it's put together really well. But since 1996, we have
Yeah.
taken such a leap in terms of realism. If you look at our
Oh, for
website and
sure.
the picture that's up, you would think it's a movie. And so I think that photorealism is one of the things that we have to note, that you've got this incredibly graphic, scary, violent game. Um, and you're just getting to plunk off the zombies, like literally plunk their body parts off, which are all exploding and whatnot. So that's the core of what it's about. I'm sure that the Resident Evil fans out there will say, no, there's more to it than that. And there is. There's a deep storyline, but it's about killing zombies and it's back.
Right. And that's good. And I know, like you say, as a heritage kind of legacy kind of brand, it's
Yep.
going to involve, it may be a good thing for, dads and sons to play together because they remember the original game when it was
Yeah.
on a, PC or whatever.
Yep. Yeah. And I think
Fun.
there's a lot of research out there about why these sorts of games are problematic. And I think on one hand,
Sure.
if you play a shooter, you're probably not going to turn into a real life shooter yourself. But I do think what the research shows is that, especially for younger boys in adolescence, if you spend too much time doing it, it blunts their emotional development. It makes them less empathetic, less sympathetic toward their sisters, in all likelihood, who they think are zombies anyway.
Right.
And I think that as our kids are playing video games, we just want to watch how it influences them behaviorally, right? It's like,
Absolutely.
okay, how does this
Adam,
work for you?
absolutely. We got to leave it right there. We're
All good.
running out of time, but pluggedin.com, I say it all the time and I'll say it again here. You got to bookmark that website. It is information like crazy. It's information overload in a good way that you can find out about games, about movies, about books, about anything and everything entertainment. So check it out, pluggedin.com. Adam, thanks so much for your time, brother.
You bet, Steve. Thanks.
All right, we'll talk to you again next week. Okay, we've got more of the Steve Marston Show coming up, so stay with us.
a sweater I purchased was picking up static electricity, so I decided to return it. He gave me another one free of charge.
I love it. I love it. That is the dad joke of the day here on the Steve Marston Show. It's a fun Friday. Thank you for joining us. We'd love to hear from you if you are listening live right now. It's 3:44 in the Central Time Zone, so you do the math of where you're at. But if you'd like to call in, get a question, get a comment, a concern, please let me know. 501-404-6555. 501-404-6555. Let's look at a few other things going on today. This was really cool. I just came across this right before we went on air, but there's a guy in Baltimore. His name is Arthur Green. Arthur is 109 years old. He has served his country in a couple of wars. I assume it's World War II, and I would assume Korea, but I don't know how far back that goes. But he is a super fan of his baseball team there in Baltimore, the Orioles. In fact, he has been following Baltimore since the team got to the city, because back a long time ago, they were in St. Louis and called the Browns, and they moved to Baltimore in 1954. And Arthur was in his late 30s at the time. So he's been following the team since day one, and they invited him to throw out the first pitch today at their baseball game. So it was a big deal for him. How cool is that? Just shows the neatness of baseball. You just don't get that kind of fan interaction with any of the other major sports. I just love hearing and seeing that. Let's look at this one too. This is from the CPAC, conservative group got together in Dallas, and people were kind of upset with Franklin Graham because he got there and did a speech where he talked about Christianity and the nation, and talked about how Trump has done well and encouraged people to vote for Trump's policies in the midterm, even though he's not on the ballot. And then at the end of his remarks, Franklin Graham said something about a reelect Trump, and people were losing their minds over it. So he's had to kind of backtrack, says, no, I didn't mean to say that. It was just a slip of the tongue. But Franklin Graham, who I respect and like a lot, I do think he gets probably more political than his dad ever did. But still, I like him a lot, and I'm thankful for his leadership on a lot of different things. So he just wanted to make sure that was corrected, that he knows that President Trump is not going to run for a third term, as much as his detractors say that he's going to. And then this one, there's just sometimes you have to laugh. There's a pastor named Tony Hudson. I want you to watch this video clip of him in action, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Like preachers. They don't act like them. They're CEOs, good organizers. Amen. Suave, smooth, effeminate. Reprove, then rebuke. That means a forceful, verbal, to rebuke. All we want's a little sermonette for a Christianette dressed like a majorette. Somebody help me. Driving the car. Tell me 10 steps to a better self-image. Make me feel better. But that's not what we're called to do. God's chosen medium to communicate the message of the gospel to preach to the church is a leather-lunged, high blood pressure, gravy-sopping, biscuit-eating Baptist preacher. Amen. When the world in its wisdom knew not God, had pleased God through the foolishness of preaching, not foolish preaching, but through the foolishness of preaching to save them that would believe. God's chosen preachers.
Leather-lunged, high blood pressure, gravy-sopping, biscuit-eating Baptist preacher. Uh, that's and the thing is he's serious. He is dead serious about all of that, and thinks that those type people, the people like himself, are the only ones qualified to be preachers, and that if you're not one of those, you're just some effeminate, lily livered kind of guy behind the desk. So you got to laugh. You can't let it get under your skin. You can't let it raise your blood pressure like his is already raised apparently. So yeah, I just thought that was funny. And there are people that sit under that kind of preaching, and again, I pray for them. It's just nuts. Faith between your ears is the Bible verse that we learn every week. We start on Monday with a verse and we carry it all the way through Friday, and we try to find ways to memorize it to make sure we can hide God's word in our heart so that we have it there in the forefront of our thinking. That's why we call it faith between your ears. And with Palm Sunday coming up this weekend, we thought it would be cool to memorize Zechariah 9:9. This was the verse that everybody, when they were there on scene, when Jesus came through Jerusalem on the donkey, this is what was in their minds because they knew the Old Testament. This is the fulfillment of that prophecy. And the verse is, rejoice greatly, daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. Now, I know there's a lot of words in there, but the main thing to understand is the king came righteous and victorious, but riding a lowly donkey and being humble. Well, those things didn't usually go together very often, do they? But that was a perfect description of Jesus. Again, however you would be able to memorize something, whether it's just saying it over and over and over until you get it, or maybe writing it out long form 3 or 4 or 5 times, or posting it on a little post-it note and putting it somewhere where you'll see it often. Let's make sure we understand that this is a very important verse in scripture for us to know, and I want you to memorize it. I'm going to do it too. Zechariah 9:9. More of the Steve Marston Show coming up. Okay, just one more time before we wrap up for the week. Here are the books that we are giving away with Ministry of the Month. It's Alistair Begg's children's book. C is for Christian, J is for Jesus, and they're hardbound and they're illustrated beautifully. And again, it's something for young readers and even some older elementary kids will have a chance to really get something out of them too. So if you want them, keep listening to the radio station. We'll give you a chance to call in to also to write in on the websites. So you just keep listening. And if you want a couple of copies now, don't tell anybody, but we'll give them to you. If you want to call in, 501-404-6555, 501-404-6555 is the number to call. Now, before we get to our best video on the internet today, let me remind you that coming up on Monday, we're going to have a big time. We've got a couple of special guests in the wings. Now, I don't want to jinx it, and I know it's not. There's no such thing as jinx. I'm just saying. Anytime I usually pre-promote some like big names, it usually falls through. So I'm kind of hesitant to do that, but we'll just ask you to listen in on Monday to see if it works out. Okay. We'll be having that hopefully Monday afternoon at 3:00 with the Steve Marston Show. All right. Every day we search and scour through the internet using the sweat of our brow and working our keyboarded fingers to the bone to find you the best clip on the internet today. And this video comes to us courtesy of the great stand-up Nate Bargatze. And I have just become a big fan of his. I wasn't really aware of him more than probably about, 6 months ago at the most. And this one's really good. This is about eating healthy with him going to his doctor. So let's watch. Here's Nate Bargatze with the best clip on the internet today.
That's the main problem. I eat like a child. It's not good. He goes, let's go through like what you had for breakfast or your whole day of eating. He goes, let's go through yesterday. And in my head, I'm like, well, yesterday's not a good day. Let's pick another day. He goes, go through yesterday. I go, all right. I had donuts in the morning. And he goes, all right. Was it like they were just out or something? I go, no, I drove to it. I drove to it, and he's like, is it on your way? I go, nope, I was late to where I was going because of it. He goes, what about late night snacking? And I was like, well, I had Sour Patch Kids last night. And he goes, did you watch a movie? I go, no, just regular TV. And he told me, he's like, the little kid bag? I go, no, it was a bag. It was a bag of them. If you saw it without a label and someone said, hand me that bag, they wouldn't be confused on what you were asking.
I love it. I love it, boy. That's so good. All right. Well, we are just about done for not only today, but for the week. We want to thank you for being a part of the show so much. We can't thank you enough. Producer Tommy, good job out of you. Good job out of Adam Holtz from PluggedIn.com as well. Be in church Sunday for Palm Sunday. Encourage someone. Let your light shine. And we're back Monday at 3. Bye.